Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on an invisible world. It's a world that connects the animals on a farm directly to the food on your plate. We're talking about zoonoses. These are diseases that can actually jump from animals to people. And a lot of times, it's through the food we eat. We're going to uncover where these hidden dangers are lurking, how they make us sick, and most importantly, the incredible systems that are designed to keep us all safe. So let's dive in. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You have a meal, and oh boy, you instantly regret it. You might just chalk it up to bad luck, but that awful upset stomach is actually your personal frontline experience with the huge field of science called veterinary public health. So what is really going on when food goes bad? All right, so let's get down to it. What exactly is food poisoning? It's not just one thing. It really breaks down into two main types, and the difference between them is all about how a tiny microbe decides to ruin your day. Okay, so check this out. On one hand, you've got a foodborne infection. This is where you eat a living organism, like a bacteria, and it sets up camp and starts to multiply inside you. Naturally, that takes a little while to get going. But on the other hand, you have an intoxication. This is where the bug has already been in the food, done its damage, and left behind a nasty little toxic present. You're not eating the bug itself, just its poison. And that's why an intoxication can hit you so much faster, like a ton of bricks. So, how does this contamination even happen in the first place? Well, the risk factors are often things we see or do every single day. Leaving food out on the counter for too long, eating raw or undercooked food, using contaminated water, or even something as simple as just forgetting to wash your hands. The good news here, a lot of these are totally preventable. All right, so who are these microscopic troublemakers? Let's meet the main suspects in our food safety rogues gallery. The usual suspects fall into four major categories. You've got bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. And while they can all cause some serious trouble, one of these groups is, by far, the most common culprit when it comes to foodborne illness. And yep, that group is bacteria. They are the heavy hitters in the world of foodborne disease, no question. And here's a really crucial point. Food animals, the livestock we raise from meat, milk, and eggs, are often major reservoirs for these bacteria. What that means is the bacteria can live inside these animals, often without making them sick at all, but they can then get passed on to us through the food chain. Let's open up a classic case file, salmonellosis. You've probably heard of it. It's a bacterial infection, and it's super common in things like poultry and eggs. If you eat something that's contaminated, you could end up with a fever, diarrhea, and in the worst cases, a systemic infection that spreads throughout your whole body. It's a perfect example of how a bug that's harmless to a chicken can become a really big problem for us. But it's not all about bacteria. Viruses are a huge cause of foodborne illness too. I mean, you've almost definitely heard of norovirus. It's famous for spreading like wildfire. And others, like hepatitis, can also be transmitted through contaminated food and water, causing some really serious liver inflammation. And to round out our little rogues gallery, we have parasites. Organisms like Giardia can get into our food and water systems and lead to some pretty prolonged and nasty illnesses. So when a whole bunch of people get sick from the same source, how in the world do we figure out what happened? Well, this is where the real-life disease detectives of public health step in. Their outbreak investigations are kind of like a real-life episode of CSI. The whole process is basically a detective story. First, they have to detect a problem. Maybe they notice a weird spike in reported illnesses. Then they find the cases, figuring out who's sick and what they have in common. The real shoe leather work is tracing the source back to its origin. Was it the lettuce at that one restaurant, the chicken from that one farm? They follow all the clues. And finally, and most importantly, they control the outbreak to stop it from spreading and figure out how to prevent it from ever happening again. Now, I know this all might sound a little scary, but here's the really good news. We have some incredibly powerful defenses. So let's look at how we can protect ourselves, both in our own kitchens and on a much, much bigger scale. It all starts right in your kitchen. These 3 simple rules are your first and, honestly, your best line of defense. Wash your hands, wash your cutting boards. Keep raw chicken and its juices far, far away from the salad you're making. Seriously, just using a separate cutting board for raw meat is one of the most powerful things you can do to prevent cross-contamination. The second part of your home defense is all about temperature. Cooking food to the right internal temperature, that kills off the bad guys. And on the flip side, chilling your leftovers quickly stops new bacteria from having a party in your fridge. Think of proper cooking and chilling as a food safety dynamic duo. But, personal hygiene is just one piece of this giant puzzle. The great thing is that we're also protected by these huge, large-scale surveillance systems. These are national and even international networks that are constantly tracking disease patterns, monitoring food production plants, and spotting potential outbreaks before they can explode into a full-blown crisis. So now let's look ahead. The world is always changing, and because of that, the threats to our food supply are changing too. This whole field is more critical than ever, especially as we start to face new and re-emerging zoonotic diseases. And these threats are evolving. We're not just worried about a bad case of salmonella anymore. Think about the major global health crises of our time. From avian flu to Ebola, they have zoonotic origins. This really highlights a critical modern truth. Our food travels thousands of miles from farm to fork, which means a local outbreak somewhere can become a global threat almost overnight. So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway. Keeping our food safe and controlling diseases that jump from animals to humans, it's not just about preventing an upset stomach. It's a fundamental pillar of public health. It's a matter of global security. It's about protecting our entire society. And all of this leaves us with one final, really critical question to chew on. As our world gets more and more interconnected, is our global food system actually ready for the next threat? That's something for all of us to think about.